Oh, okay. And we are live. Hi, everyone. And my name is Olena Yara. I took a really long vacation and now I'm back with the webinar series. And before we dive into everything, I also have a lot of things I should share. So, to start with the main thing, today we will be talking with Paul, who co-founded Factory 40 with me. It's a nomadic art gallery. We host digital art exhibitions around the world. And this summer, we will be hosting an exhibition in Lisbon. It is a part of Non-Fungible Conference, so if you're in town for this event, please do join us. You can go to my profile on X and scroll a little bit down and join the artistic open call. Basically, this type form will allow you to submit either NFTs or Bitcoin ordinals. If you scroll down a little bit more, you will see this Luma link, which will allow you to register and join as a guest. Another part of it is that it's our normal introduction, is that if you go to the Omakase Show profile on X, you can always support our show by sending your donation in Ethereum, this kind of button with cash, and you will see the ATH address. So please feel free to do so. And besides that, I'm super happy to be back with the webinars. And this webinar is going to be super fun and warm because I know Paul for, I would say, around like 3 years, even more. And last summer, we started working together a lot on digital art exhibitions and other creative fun things. So Paul basically knows everything about digital art, AI, marketing, if I am correct, also pharmaceutical industry. And Paul also has an alter ego, which is Flux Art, and we will be talking more about his artwork, but also about how you promote an artwork, how you create a digital art exhibition. So yeah, finally, hi Paul, and thank you so much for joining me today. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Lola. And yeah, you gave me a very big introduction there. I've got a lot to live up to, unfortunately. Hi, everybody. Yeah, as you mentioned, I've got well, I'm not a young guy. Let's put it that way. So I've got a lot of experience in many different areas, as you say. But I guess in the last 10 years or something like that, I've really been focusing on AI, and I've also been focusing on art. And so I've tried to bring those two things together. And it's a little bit like my dual passions, really. I also in entrepreneurship, and so it's all really about the grassroots. I just love, struggling artists, struggling entrepreneurs. I love to find ways to help them to create accelerators, hackathons, events, and all of these sort of. Yeah, that's my world. My world is really working with entrepreneurs and artists, but also being an artist myself, as Lisa says.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And in general, one thing about you is that you have a really good ability to give out an advice that would suit in both professional and personal spheres of life. Somehow this is also a superpower. And to dive directly into this, a part of what you're doing is organizing events. And every artist will be facing this moment of their life when their art is good enough, or they feel really good and like convinced that their art should be shown. How can they indeed do it from your perspective as somebody who puts together an event? So what would be your advice to an artist to get showcased somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, my number one sort of go-to advice really is to kind of build your own tribe, which is really about building a community, because the more you do that, the easier it gets the next time round. So if you're starting completely from scratch, you know, it's never going to be that easy, because you launch your event and you've got to find the first 100 people or whatever it is, but you're starting from scratch. But if you think about it, the next time you do that, you've already got 100 people, and then you get another 100 people. So your community grows and grows. And this is why I'm personally enthusiastic about events, because I don't like events necessarily just for the sake of doing events. I do events in all sorts of strange areas, like PyTorch. I run London PyTorch meetup, which is a deep learning forum. I run an AI engineering event. But I do it because I want to build community, and I find that kind of combination of real life and digital is a very, very powerful way of making your own life easy by building your own tribe. And whatever you choose to do, and it may be that you choose to launch your own artwork or your own art project, you've already got your community to talk to. You're not starting from scratch each time. So yeah, build community on social media, build your LinkedIn profile. Don't be too cynical. Now, we all hate big tech, but we all find ourselves having to use their products. And just be choosy about which ones you use, and try to use the ones that are most aligned to your own, to your own beliefs.
Thank you so much. And perhaps let's dive partially into Flux, but we are also keeping this theme of organizing events in mind. But let's start with an explanation why Flux. I know you have a lot of meaning behind this particular alter ego name.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, Flux means a lot to me, and the meaning of Flux really is all about change. And yeah, thanks. And I guess I see it as being personal change and also about societal change. So from a personal point of view, I think of many people, I've been one of the people who probably changed the most during my career. I started off life as a salesman. I became a management consultant. I became a startup founder, and now I'm an artist. I've been through 4 of the main sort of professional things you can do. So that's, I'm always interested in the next big thing. I think in terms of career change, I think I've got to the end of the road now. I mean, this is my happy place. That's where I want to be. I don't anticipate I'm moving on from being an artist, but also societal change. And I've always been super interested in what's going on around us. And I think both in the world in general and in art, we're at a time of, in other words, everything is changing around us. Artificial intelligence is having its impact on art and digital art, but it's also having a huge impact on society. And what I really want to do is I want to reflect these changes in society. I want to use art to reflect it. I want to use art to subvert what's going on around. I want to be the fight against big tech. I make my political points, and I think that we've got that ability to do that at the moment because we've got the tools to do it in terms of creating reach, creating community, and getting our messages across. And I think artists, by the way, are probably the people most equipped to win this fight, and it is a fight. It's a fight for society, really. The oligarchy and the tech industrial complex, as Biden calls it, which is overtaking our lives. But if anybody can fight, it's artists, and I feel really passionate about this and tell. I'm trying to create a voice, not just for myself, but for other artists. And it's a kind of fight for freedom, in my opinion.
Let's dive into AI. So your journey into AI as a part of art creational process was quite unusual, because I do believe that you were using AI or even was curious about AI even before we had all the open source tools like ChatGPT, etc. So, and I know you're also involved at a lot of projects that are related to AI as a way to empower all the creative fields. And together with Paul, we also worked on AI hackathon accelerator, where we saw like 10 or 17 projects using AI to empower various fields of creative industries. To put it short, how do you implement AI in your artistic journey? Both, why do you see the value of this technology in general?
Yeah, I mean, although as you say, I've actually been involved in AI for like 10 years now. I've run various AI accelerators. I think I ran the first AI accelerator in London, which was KQ Lab with AI in health. But it's still actually quite a steep learning curve as far as I'm concerned with regard to art. And I started as a expression painter, which I still do. I've got a studio in Hackney Wick, and so like everything else, I'm having to learn how to put together the artificial or AI stack to create art. And to answer your question directly, I would say my use of AI in art is at the moment still relatively naive. You know, I'm using Mid-Journey, I'm using Flux, I'm using AI models, but I'm using them in a relatively simple way. But also I can see what's on the horizon, and I can see where I'm going with my AI art and working in collaboration with others. And that's to put together a more sophisticated stack of open source. I was talking to somebody over this last weekend about this, and we see that really not just about doing single prompts, not just about creating single images. It's about creating experiences by linking together, what might be sound, video, image into kind of AI creations or along those lines. And it requires quite a lot of expertise. So kind of somewhere down the learning curve on that. Those of you who are technical will have come across products like Comfy UI and other such open source products, just starting to explore these products. And and this is why it's so exciting, because actually we are really at the bottom of the mountain, and we're going to see such amazing stuff come out from artists who can use these products to create interesting, basically.
So I didn't know the fact about 10 years working with AI and creating events, I guess, around AI. So if you were to compare where we were like 10 years ago with where we are now, how would you do it? Like in general, do you see a big progress happening, like a big shift, or a moderate one?
Yeah, I'm thinking kind of carefully about it, because you go back 10 years, people were amazingly excited, but it was much more about very specific use cases. So it was all about can AI do medical imaging better than a doctor? Can AI create better than a pharmaceutical company can at the moment? All these sort of things. And it was getting there, so it was good progress, lots of excitement. And then what happened was Gen AI came along, and Gen AI is much more, people talk about artificial general intelligence, and we may not quite there yet, but we're kind of much closer to that than we were before. And so it's become societal. AI is like everywhere. I doubt there's anybody listening that hasn't used AI. Whereas before it was a specialist thing that was done by data. And so that's a really big difference. And of course, this then leads to societal change that's happening all around. It's a way that big tech and governments interact with us. It's a way that they surveil us. We've got a surveillance economy. So suddenly it becomes serious. And that's the big difference. And I think from an artistic perspective, AI was only really accessible to a very small number of artists, who could perhaps do things like algorithmic art and things like that. But now again, anybody who can create a prompt can go into one of these platforms. We had people, didn't we, involved in our London, Paris, Berlin accelerator, people who probably never played with AI in detail before, doing kind of remarkable stuff almost on the fly straight away. So yeah, that's what's exciting about it. It's kind of much more open to people in general.
Indeed. And you've been talking about it, and this adoption, it happened so quickly. Just yesterday, I had a small house gathering with my friends, and there was my girlfriend, and we asked her to Google something, but not Google, but ChatGPT it, and she replied that she doesn't have an app on her phone and that she doesn't use any AI chat box, which felt like super weird. It felt like somebody doesn't have a phone or internet connection. And then I realized that just like 2 years ago, this reply would be so normal or even like so common that like from not having any access to AI as a normal consumer who doesn't have any tech background, we went to full scale adoption. It's almost everywhere. I think like I see the breakdown of how I spend time on my phone, and normally Instagram would be the top one platform, and now I see that ChatGPT kind of is dominating. But it can be anything. It can be other applications that are also AI chat boxes. And if we have this in mind and we see that this shift happened so quickly, how would you envision the future of AI as an open source tool and also as a tool that empowers creatives?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're facing a little bit of a fight between centralized systems, the big tech solutions coming out of all the guys you know, Google and OpenAI, Amazon, all these people, and the community. And I think there's a big difference in how we probably should be perceiving the two sides, the centralized and the open source. The centralized, in my opinion, are kind of like an evil force that we need to watch very, very carefully, because these are creating these oligarchies which are effectively monopolies, and they restrict on other forms of entrepreneurship because.
Okay, this is quite common. So yeah, let's please. Oh, okay, Paul is back. We are good. Yeah, I see Paul connecting, so I guess it would just take a few minutes. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you stopped at the part where you were talking about big companies and as well as OpenAI being a big corporation that also leads this adoption in a sense, but it's not that good. Yeah. It is, yeah.
I mean, what I was really saying is between big tech oligarchies and open source, and they're so different. What one is, it's large companies monopolizing society and making it very hard for the small guy. It's really hard to compete against those players. And then on the other hand, you've got open source, which is a bunch of free tools to everyone. So they're two sides of a coin, really, and open source is really so attractive. Now, if we can win the battle by supporting open source, making the open source predominates, I'm very optimistic, because I'm thinking that artists are very clever at using the tools that are available to them. I think it's also important. Art itself is very important in this argument. Having this layer of creativity is what's going to define humans, basically. If you think about it, that we're going to be highly automated. We're going to get up in the morning. Our lives are going to be regulated if we're not careful. So I think that artists need to fight for humanity, in the sense that we be the ones who lead the let's call it, I don't want to be too dramatic, let's call it the counter revolution against what's going on here. We need to make sure that human creativity still comes to the fore, even in a world that it has a huge amount of AI in it.
That's quite interesting. Well, I may sound slightly extra here, but I personally find a lot of AI-generated arts extra mediocre, as well as then what is not mediocre is incredible, really powerful, really tech-driven, also empowered by technology, really different from non-AI art in a sense that would not be able to be created if it wasn't for the use of AI in this artwork. And this is quite a personal question, my personal curiosity. Do you have the same sense that we get 80% of mediocre, the most basic generated AI artwork used by the most simple, naive prompts? But then we can also see incredible artworks that are made on trained AI models, or even not on them. They are just beautifully made.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Except I wouldn't say 80%. I would say it's like 99% is mediocre. But this is true of the art world in general, and it's also true of the startup world. You know, it's always a like 99 to 1. It's because these things are very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. Being an artist is very, very difficult. And, you know, the way the economics of it work is it's about uniqueness. And, you know, so you don't really want to have 50% of it. It will never be 50%, because what we're really seeking out in art is 50%. We wouldn't be impressed if everything all looked like amazing art, because it would no longer be amazing art, if you see what I mean. What makes it amazing is that one or two people create something completely different. And I think what's happening with AI art is because it's new, and because everybody can do it, everybody now thinks they're an artist, you know. And I think you see a lot is you see technical people who just simply say, okay, it's all done now, you know, I'm a techie, I can just go into this and I can create an amazing piece of art. But it's non-artists judging their own work, which is, you know, and in many cases all they're doing is producing, let's say, the equivalent of something that's photorealistic. You know, it could be done with a photograph, it could have been done with by graphic design, and that's not to say that those people don't produce amazing stuff, but yes, just the technical ability to be able to produce something that is photorealistic is not creating art. You know, art is about the message, it's about the person, it's about what invokes in things. And as you say, it's just a mundane thing that you've seen 100 times over, then it's just simply not art. So yeah, I've got strong feelings about that, as you can see. But it's, you know, on the other hand, I also see it as a huge opportunity, because I think before AI, you had a very limited set of tools to play with to create great art. You know, I particularly as a painter see that, because we've just presented with a canvas and some paints and some paintbrushes. The limit, I mean, it's all been done before. But I think when you start to extend that out and to say, well, now you don't just have a canvas, but you have a screen, and it's multiple pixels, it's high definition, and on top of that, you've got these tools that you can put together. You can go multimedia, multimodal, and you can even go multi-sense. You know, multi-sense. In other words, you can be evoking vision, sound. Probably it's going to be like smell, touch, and everything else. What we're getting is we're getting something that just expands what art is really, but it still will only be 1% that kind of really stick with you and become, you know, probably, you know, become valuable, let's say.
That's fair enough. I always had this small doubt that perhaps because I did took a lot of courses on art history and I worked in art industry for some years and I have an experience in general. I know you do too. So perhaps we are getting more and more conservative and we find stuff mediocre whenever a general viewer, like just a statistical viewer that would come to an exhibition would find this not mediocre. I don't know, or artsy enough, whatever. But that's an interesting discussion, and I guess there is no definite answer to this question.
Yeah, but I do think that you're right. We may be judgmental about art, but I think it requires people to be judgmental. I think their own work of other artists and just the general public needs to be judgmental, and at the same time we kind of need to be open-minded. And so, you know, we don't want to be, you know, saying that everything is, you know, is mediocre or rubbish. At the same time, and so we want to be open-minded, but at the same time we do need to be a little. We do need to have opinions about art, and we need to probably be fairly tough on artists and call them out. I mean, I think that the other thing is, and I would go back to Web3, crypto. You know, we're now in the sort of crypto winter, and we've been in there for a long time. But crypto art, for example, it's not. It's the same thing. It's not all good and it's not all bad. I think that some of the things that were done in early, truly original, you know, will remain original in posterity. So we'll look back and we'll say, you know, Bored Apes or something like that was novel and therefore was art. But we'll look back and see Bored Apes, let's say, and say, well, look, that wasn't art. It was just somebody who wanted to copy something. But that's true of all art. You know, I think if you try to copy Andy Warhol today, your copy will not be art, but Andy Warhol will be art. You know, it's all about originality, thinking differently, and opening people's minds and doing something different, like a collection. Would open people's minds at the time to what art could be.
I have a story in my head. I knew it for like 5 or 6 years, so the story may be incorrect. That's just disclaimer. But basically, it's quite popular Ukrainian avant-garde artist Kazimir Malevich, and he was the first person to just like paint black square. Yeah. I think you know it. And yeah, like he has a whole vision. It was placed in the corner of a room because this is how in Ukraine you normally put an icon at whatever, like any totem religious object. So it had a concept, a whole idea, but public couldn't understand this high idea behind the artwork. And I do remember there should be a dialogue where somebody told him that his baby could paint even better black square or something, or they said like, I can paint better black square than you did. And he replied, I'm convinced you can, but can you sell it? And this is the main point, to sell it first, to explain it first, to display it first. But then there is also a really interesting part of art industry where you have Kazimir Malevich at different price points. You have one who is the most celebrated, important one, but you also have different avant-garde artists that were doing quite similar things, but they were just selling to different audiences at lower or higher prices. That's the thing about art. It's quite interesting. It's personal, intimate, but at the same time, it has beautiful marketing strategy to it. Well, I want to focus also on Flux. I know you use both digital and oil on canvas artworks, physical ones. I know that Hackney Wick inspires you a lot. This is where your studio is located, and I've been there. It's a lovely place, really creative. So yeah, guide us through your kind of both creative process and the inspirational one.
Yeah, well, I started off really as an abstract expressionist, and I guess my mind worked like abstract expressionists tend to work, you know, which is simply you arrive with no idea often, and you start painting, and really what you're doing there is you're expressing yourself, and so you're trying to get out kind of inner feelings onto paper, you know, onto canvas or whatever. I think more where I'm starting to use AI and other, and I guess I'm trying to become more ambitious. I'm trying to approach the artistic process from two ends, really. One is that expressionism, but the second one really is having an idea in my head about what message I'm trying to get across. And sometimes those messages, in fact, mostly those messages are quite big messages. You know, I'm really talking about freedom. I'm talking about other people's freedom, and I feel very strongly about the fact, you know, at the moment that you know, in the world at the moment, people's freedoms are being hailed. And I guess the challenge for the artist and for me as well is trying to tie the two ends of the spectrum together when you actually create an artwork. You know, to go from the expressionist angle where you're just doing what your what your hand and brain tells you to do, and from the message you're trying to get across. And I think it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, I think it's almost like a lifelong process where you gradually get closer and closer to being able to express yourself in the way you want to express yourself. And quite often people will look at the works and say, I don't see how that is about freedom. But that's not with me. I think it's whatever it does mean to you. You know, so I don't expect everybody just to look at one of my paintings and to get the same message as I'm trying to get across. But you know, if they get some message across from it, then I have a result.
And what about the medium? For instance, I'm not sure, it looks like a digital artwork, but I also know that you use oil on canvas quite frequently. So is it mixed media, and in general, how do you connect digital and physical mediums that are available?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of starting from every point, going in every direction. So in other words, you know, I could start with a real painting. I could work on it, you know, at some point in the process and turn it into a digital work. So, you know, I can take the image, I can manipulate the image. Do it the other way around. I can ideate with AI and with prompting, and I can I can use it as inspiration for a for a painting. I can kind of try to subvert. I think my favorite thing, what I'm really trying to do, and I'm not sure whether I'm 100% successful yet, is that I'm trying to subvert AI. Kind of fun. I mean, it's a freedom thing again. You know, I'm trying to do what the AI doesn't want me to do, not what the AI does want me to do.
Is this one? Is this an example? The one on the right?
Yeah, I think most of them are examples because most of them are not. What the AI really wants you to do is it wants you to accurately prompt it, and then it wants you to accept what you've prompted it. That kind of design, right? And as an artist, I kind of push against that and say, you know, I don't care what you want me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do, but I'm going to maybe, you know, be playful and take what you've given me, and then I'm going to try and cut it, basically. So I think this is my idea for the future, is this idea, because in a way it's kind of a metaphor for the fight against big tech and being told what to do by AI, is to say, look, whatever you want me to do, I'm just not going to do it, sort of thing. There's this kind of rebel thing involved.
That makes sense.
And as you mentioned, you know, kind of Hackney Wick is an example. As you probably know, I mean, I'm kind of like the oldest skateboarder in town, and but skateboarding for me is also the metaphor for freedom, and it's one of the best metaphors you can have. It completely releases you from any type of sort of corporate control. So yeah, Hackney Wick street art. Yeah, there you are. That's a really good picture of Hackney Wick street. people say it's like
And this
Brooklyn,
is the place where your studio is, like this exact building. That is, yeah.
Yeah, and some of my and some actual paintings are of mine as well, and that's my studio. So yeah. So quite a lot of variety, and I think as a developer, as an artist, I think I'm going to go more multimedia, more multimodal, more multi-sensory, rather than less, basically.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering. And I was just looking at the Hackney footage and forgot my thoughts about the next question.
It has an effect on anybody who's not been to Hackney Wick. It's one of it's probably the craziest place in London, and I mean, for example, they were having a 10-kilometer half marathon, whatever that is. That's longer than 10 kilometers, and the place was absolutely heaving with people, crazy people. At the same time, there was a football match on, so I've never seen the place so full. But it's very vibrant. It's full. It's had a community central. Everything is going on in one place. Craft breweries, and I sound like Hackney Wick tourist board. I recommend anybody getting down there and having a look, and anybody who wants to come and see me in my studio is very welcome to do that.
Yeah, indeed. So basically, my first experience with Hackney in general was on my own. I was living there for months, first time in London, like, okay, second, or third, but first time by myself. And I was shocked. It is quite different from the rest of London. In general, East London, I prefer it more, but a lot of people don't. But Hackney Wick with Paul is a really amazing experience because he basically knows the history of the district itself. And it indeed felt like a tiny community that is living inside of it, because London is a huge city and not everyone is chatful enough or cheerful enough to talk to a stranger. But Hackney Wick, I guess, has this kind of creative hipster vibe where people are outgoing and really present and there for each other, which is also like a really nice feeling you can get in a big city. And I kind of recalled my question. Basically, I saw the titles of each artwork would be Flux and a number. For instance, Flux 204. Is this the actual count? Have you created 204 artworks before that were titled as in this sequence?
I'm not quite sure where I started the clock ticking. You look at my Instagram, and you can probably find more than 200 works on my Instagram. Yes, but I it's started to think about. I mean, what I probably would say is that I really got excited by more professional during COVID, and I'd painted all my life, but it was during the crisis I started setting up my easel next to my Zoom calls, my business Zoom calls. I was painting while I was supposed to be doing business. And then some people saw my paintings and people started buying them, and I took on the studio, etc., etc. So the clock really started ticking around about the time when I started to become professional. Where I took on the studio, and all the rest of it. And so I think over the years I've done far more than 200, but more recent ones, And the reason I'm using numbers at the moment is I guess I'm trying to get read people's thoughts too much about the meaning of the art. I know it's quite a controversial subject. I mean, lots of people actually say to me, why don't you talk more about your art? Why don't you put more detail? And I find that sometimes artists can talk too much about their art, but it just doesn't sound. It can often sound, in my opinion, and also curators tend to write a lot of the art descriptions. So sometimes I'm more kind of the Andy Warhol approach, where people start, and he would more or less kind of grunt at them and say, well, whatever, you know. It's just, for me, slightly more authentic not to write stuff that you don't really believe in, you know. I think I would just rather say, well, just make what you want of it, and I'll make what I want of it.
I think it is actually so applicable to other spheres. My partner has a series about are you Messi or Ronaldo, which is the following that if we take Ronaldo, a really successful football player, he would do the interviews all the time, he would stay media present, and he would be telling that he woke up at 5 a.m. and he was dedicated throughout his whole professional journey. And when he had a football match at 3 p.m., he would be there at 12 p.m., just training and everything. And he would kind of tell you how dedication got his to the place of being a really good football player. And we also have a Messi on the other hand, also insanely talented, dedicated, good football player who never gave a proper interview, like ever. And who never actually explained if he was in advance to a football match or not. So maybe he wasn't. So there is like a whole different approach on how people communicate about their work life that doesn't even directly impact on the results they would achieve.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think for the people who are listening, probably both be quite exciting. I mean, it is really what I mean. Andy Warhol was an excellent marketeer, but he did it hardly saying any words, and often actually refusing to say words in an actual interview. So that would be slightly embarrassing, or you would be a bit like me just sitting here and saying nothing, which would not be very interesting for the viewers, I'm afraid. But he was an ad man. He was a successful ad man, and so it wasn't that he was stupid or anything like that. I think he just wanted people to come to their own views. So I'm certainly of the latter kind of way of thinking, but I think it's it's open to everybody their own style in these things, and it does just prove that you can be an individual and you don't have to follow a playbook. I think there's a bit too much of life being like one big playbook, and I think people who are rebellious will rebel against the playbook because that's a good thing, because people want you to do certain things, and I think technology is reinforcing that. Technology wants you to open your computer in the morning and do this and market your way in this way. It doesn't want you to shut down your X account or whatever. And so you're being manipulated to quite a high degree. So I think at the end, you need to get as close as possible to getting off the matrix or off the grid or whatever the term is. And we can't do that anymore because to survive, you almost have to be on the grid. But you can make some effort, I think, to against it and try to work the system in a way that doesn't manipulate yourself or even people who are listening to you.
Definitely. And on social media, I just heard it yesterday, to be honest. There is a term, it's called neuromarketing, I guess I'm correct, which is basically a marketing of how to make you and me put the first thing we would touch in the morning would be our phones. And then it goes on throughout the day, like this whole cycle. And indeed, we are addicted. And because we are addicted to quick dopamine, which feels also safe because I'm not interacting with anyone, I'm just using this thing that is called my phone. That's a really interesting point. What I also want to focus on right now is our events in Lisbon. I know you've been in between on if you will be submitting or joining or showcasing any of your art as a Flux artist, but maybe you have an answer right now and you can share.
Yes, yeah, I think I might have seen a flash of my the one I'm thinking of missing earlier. You shared the screen. I think it's the one on my web, Flux the artist website, in the introduction, the red background and that is kind of. I think it's on. If you go on, that's the one. Yeah, exactly.
That's my favorite one. Really.
Well, in that case, I've chosen the right one. But no, that's what I'm intending. Whether on something more than one. What I should say, by the way, just to the viewers, is that Lisbon and the venue are both awesome. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Lisbon in the last few years. I was out there for 3 months, and I love the city. But I also found the venue, didn't I, Lola? And the Block Cafe. It's an excellent venue event if you can get there. With a beautiful roof terrace, and it's nearly always sunny in Lisbon. I mean, I've had one bad experience there, but where it rained the whole evening. But in general, it's beautifully sunny, and it's a great venue. It's very much part of the sort of crypto AI scene, and you'll enjoy it. So hopefully, some of you will join us there.
Indeed, indeed. And just a reminder on how to join. If you do use Luma, I really recommend you to. It's a really nice tool for Web3 AI creative events. We are featured in Lisbon in city, and you can register here and grab as many tickets as you want. And in the description, you will see my message, and you will see this type form. This is for artists who want to join and submit their NFTs, Bitcoin ordinals. And you can submit multiple artworks. You just have to refill the type form once again. And yeah, I'm actually so excited about this one. I guess we've been planning it since, what, fall? Like really early, really in advance.
It was, wasn't it? It was like October last year or something like that. October, November.
Yeah, really in advance. So in general, I want to ask like the final question around what is the next thing for Flux? What are some things you're working on right now? And if you can share just a glimpse on what we can expect to see.
Yes, so I'm thinking in the autumn we're going to do pretty large multimodal experiential experience. Probably be in London to start with, but what I'd like to do is if we can build a show, it'll be a multi-artist show as well. It won't just be me. And I think we would like to take that show on the road as well. So we'll do it in London to start with, somewhere like the Art Hotel. We haven't got it confirmed yet, but somewhere like that. And then we'll take it on the road. I think take it to 2 or 3 other places. I want to be back in Berlin soon, another city that I love. And yeah, we'll between us. If you follow us, we'll keep you informed. To what's coming basically. But very excited, and it's all to do with the tech and that tech stack and AI and stuff like that.
And just FYI for the audience, the thing with Paul that if he tells you an ambitious plan for the future, the next thing you will see is actually this plan coming to life. This is my experience when you called me and you were like, I'm working on London, Berlin, Paris, multimodal AI hackathon accelerator. And I'm like, 3 cities, hackathon, accelerator, multimodal AI. I'm like, that's a lot. And the next thing you would be like, already like in process, I'm almost done. So I guess, yeah, we indeed should stay tuned to see this one happening.
They don't all happen, but yeah, I've certainly pulled off some fairly crazy ideas. And usually at the start of it, everybody says I'm completely mad, but I just love to do something new, something different, something new. So open to ideas, guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And other way to stay in touch with Paul is basically you can find him on IG as Flux Art, but then if you also go for Paul DOW L-I-N-G. You can find him on LinkedIn. Yeah, and reach out. Well, yeah, Paul, thank you so much. I think it was a really beautiful episode to make a comeback of the webinar series, and in general felt like a dialogue, to be honest, not an interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.